good evening, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to this episode of Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. Once again, and as always, I am Andy Saunders, and I will be conducting tonight's interview. I've got a champion from Canada. It's actually kind of rare these last few years. Welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, and congratulations on your wins, Ali Hasan.
Hello. How's it going?
It's not going too bad. Here we go. Let's try to get that volume up a little bit for you. Okay, so, first of all, again, congratulations on your wins. Now, you're from New Westminster and teach in Surrey, is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, because I saw that there were a few articles that referred to you as someone from as a Surrey teacher, and it's like, that's unusual, but
yeah, it's not very far from New Westminster, just across a very short bridge. So it's a much bigger city and a lot more schools
there. Okay, so the sorry about the brief delay there. The first question I've got for you are after obviously New Westminster Surrey thing, but it's what I usually ask people off the top on Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. Most Jeopardy contestants start out as Jeopardy fans, as it were, and most fans have an origin story as to how they became Jeopardy fans in the first place. So, how did you become a Jeopardy fan?
Right. So I was born in Bahrain, as I mentioned on the show, and I lived there for much of my life. And we didn't have a lot of TV channels. We had the English channel and the Arabic channel. But we could pick up channels from other countries as well. So one of the channels we picked up was from the east coast of Saudi Arabia. And it was a channel designed for expatriates who were working in the oil fields on the east coast. And one of the shows that they had that I noticed one day was Jeopardy. And I loved quiz shows, and I knew this was a quiz show. So I said, I'm going to watch this. But I had no idea what was going on. Couldn't figure out what the format was. I pretended I knew what it was to impress my sister, but I couldn't get any of the answers right. And then she finally got one of the answers right, and I said, I see what's going on here. Now I get it. And I was just hooked from that. That was 25 years ago.
Okay, and so you immigrated to Canada at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Jeopardy is a much bigger deal in Canada than it is in Bahrain.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you were able, obviously, to pick it up very quickly and eventually get yourself to an audition eventually. I know Alex talked about that a little bit. So once you got the call, how did you end up preparing for your appearance on the show?
Well, I looked online, and that's actually how I found your site. Was one of the things I was looking up was websites about Jeopardy. I found the archive. I found a few other places where I could study. But I knew that the best way for me, I'd always been much better reading from a book. So I went to the public library, and I got an almanac, the most recent World's Almanac I could find. And I just focused on all the areas which I was either completely weak on, like American vice presidents or state nicknames. And also just tried to refresh my memory on things I knew that came up a lot, like world capitals. And I just tried to study as much of it as I could. And at some point I decided, okay, there's a certain limit of how much I can put in my brain in 3 weeks. So I'm not going to try and remember all these names from baseball. And that's another one of my blind spots. Mm-hmm. It became obvious when the question about strikeouts came out, and I didn't know what they were talking about.
Well, I mean, from a strategic perspective, I think a lot of people had thought that you were trying to protect the lead, as it were, and you didn't want to neg yourself out of first place, as it were. So I think
I also had no clue, to be fair.
Fair enough. Now, over your 3 wins and a loss, you kind of came close to averaging 5 negs a game. Now, that's a little bit on the high side. Was that a concerted effort going in to take more chances, as it were?
I think I just wanted to be first on the buzzer so often. And I think that was something that I was high with. I got like 40% first on buzzer according to your website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it's working for me. If I get in most of the time, and even if I make mistakes every once in a while, if I answer more than I don't, I have a better chance of getting into the lead. It was in the last game though that I made a mistake towards the end where I got the last two questions. I was just worried about not being in the lead going to Final Jeopardy that I buzzed in when I shouldn't have, and that's what cost me the game on that one. But there was no strategy in particular. I just went in and said, I'll see if I can buzz in faster than everyone else.
Okay. So how did it end up? So obviously, I mean, in first 40 over 40% of the time, I think it was around 42, but it's certainly, you certainly had a lot of success on the buzzers. So what would you say your strategy was on that? Did you play it off Alex's voice? Did you wait for the lights around the board, or what did you end up doing?
I started waiting for the lights. That didn't work for me, so then I just went with Alex's voice, and that worked a lot better for me. The only thing is, after a while, like I played all those games in one day. After a while, I don't know, I must have just fallen out of his cadence because I just kept messing up. And I think once you see other people are buzzing in 4 or 5 times and you can't buzz in, it kind of hurts your confidence a little. So at that point, my timing was getting even worse. But yeah, I just went off his voice in the beginning, and I don't know, must have had good reflexes.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly worked out for you. The daily doubles, not quite as not quite as well. A lot of them seem to be very American centric.
Yes, they were. That's what people kept saying to me here. It's like, oh, they must have fixed it against you with all the American questions. I said, no, it's just I knew that was going to come up going in, but there's just only so much American history I could learn in a short period of time. I wanted to watch Ken Burns' Civil Wars documentary, but I just didn't have time for that.
Now, how did you prepare for, U.S. history? Because one of my readers, Mary M., was wondering, pretty much the question she wanted me to ask was, how did you know so much about U.S. history? I think the surprise that you had done so well on the American questions, being from Bahrain and then emigrating to Canada, not having that American experience.
Well, I mean, the whole world has an American experience in a way. I mean, it permeates throughout the world. So we get lots of American culture everywhere. We definitely get it here in Canada, and we did get it in America because at the time I was getting Jeopardy, this was just after the invasion of Kuwait. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the U.S. and soldiers came over, and they brought a lot of their pop culture with them. So we were exposed to that. We got to see a lot of it. We watched the American movies, and we learned a lot from watching Jeopardy. And yeah, like I said, I got the almanac and I studied from that, but I already knew a lot of it. The things that I didn't know, obviously, were glaring, but the things that I did know, yeah, I just picked it up.
Mm-hmm. So, um, no, being a teacher, I know that for the teachers tournament, a lot of the teachers get their students to help them prepare. Now, did you do the same thing? Did your students help at all with your preparation, or did you kind of just decide you weren't going to tell them that you were going to be on Jeopardy?
Yeah, I wanted to keep it a secret because my fear, and I had this up until that first day, and up until that final Jeopardy question, was I was going to make a fool of myself. And so I didn't want my students to know, so that if I did make a fool of myself, I could just kind of hide it away. And they would never have to know, and hopefully they'd never see the show. So no, I didn't get my students to know. But the teachers in my school did know, and then they let it out and they told the students. So then that plan didn't work. A lot of my plans don't end up working.
Like, a train trip down to Seattle, as it were.
A train trip, my daily doubles, a lot of things that I planned don't work. But then sometimes they just work out in the end.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it certainly worked out to the tune of over $60,000 US, which is like $90,000 Canadian at this point with the way the exchange is running. How did you feel about? Because Alex kept on mentioning that you're Canadian, and it seemed that the tone of his voice wasn't so. What didn't seem overly thrilled by that, and I think a lot of people, a few Canadian viewers, seemed a little bit perturbed by that, and were commenting online. Did you find that, or did you think Alex was acting, normally, as it were?
Yeah, I think it's just a bit. I think he recognizes that he's viewed still as Canadian, even though he has dual citizenship. So he knows that when he plays it up like that, people will understand it. That it's okay coming from him. If Pat Sajak said that, then it'll be a different story. A very different story.
Mm-hmm. So, with regards to your interviews with Alex, did he go off the card at all, or go rogue, as it were, or did he stick to the card?
With the interviews, he just asked the same things that you pretty much saw. He did, after I told him my daughter's middle name is Titanic, he did go on a little bit of a rant about how a lot of people from the Titanic ended up in Halifax and how I could have named my daughter Halifax instead, but maybe that wasn't such a good idea. They cut that all out. Mm-hmm. In fact, cut a lot of his best parts out. After my first Daily Double, when I lost everything, my response was, typical Canadian, to say sorry. And he said, "That's okay. It hurt you a lot more than it hurt me." Good laugh, but they cut that out of the show. So I was a little upset by that. I was hoping that would stay in.
Well, I'm afraid that I think the producers maybe even would have been afraid of it going, the viewers taking it the wrong way, as it were.
Possibly. But I thought it was funny.
So, you obviously got a chance to be in studio between the taping of the Wednesday and the Thursday games of the week, which means that you got to have lunch on Sony's dime at the commissary. So my question for you, what did you have for lunch?
I think I had a roast beef sandwich and a Coke. I think that's what I had. I can't remember the exact details. It was definitely a sandwich of some form and a Coke, a warm Coke.
A warm Coke?
The
refrigerator wasn't working?
I don't know. It was a weirdly cold day in LA, and the Coke was warm. Everything was upside down.
Wow. Now, this would have been back in February, correct?
That's correct. February 20th, I think it was. So almost 4 months before our show. Yeah.
So, of the clues that you were able to get right, which one are you most proud of getting correct?
It's a toss-up between the Surprise Symphony, which I think is really obscure, or maybe Dewey, just because I was the only Canadian to get it right. Like I was the Canadian who got it right against the Americans. I think one of those two. I think as a moment, the Dewey one was a better TV moment, but the Surprise Symphony I think is the more obscure, and I'm more proud of that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people seem to be, wow, the two Americans missed it, and the Canadian got it. Was that just a matter of they assumed that because of the headline that Truman had conceded before actually hearing or seeing the full results, as it were?
I think it's just a matter of misreading the question. I think. I'm not sure. But I think Deirdre's reaction was that she hadn't read the question properly and misread sent for receive. I don't know. I couldn't tell you 100%. I know that was the first thing that came to my mind was Truman, and then I had to reread the question and say, wait a minute, no. Then I had to try and remember who Truman had defeated. And that's when my almanac was, I was like, oh, wait, there was that picture. Dewey beats Truman. That's who it is. It's not Adlai Stevenson. that flew through there, too.
Adlai Stevenson, it was 4 years later.
Yeah. Names flew through my head. And I'll tell you one thing. As a Canadian, you'll find this probably upsetting. But I didn't get that question about Gordie Howe, which I think is Alex Trebek's hero, Gordie Howe.
Yes, he is, yeah.
8-4. And I wanted to buzz in and say the Hartford Whalers.
Well, I mean, he did play for the Whalers at the end of his career.
Yeah, but that's not what he's known for playing for.
No.
As my friend told me, that's like saying, Brett Favre. He was the quarterback for the Chiefs, wasn't he?
Well, I would say the Vikings or the Jets. I don't think he ever played for the Chiefs, but Joe Montana did.
All right, maybe I'm wrong. Oh, yeah, Joe Montana. That's what I'm mistaken. Joe Montana. He played for the Chiefs. Like, not what he's known for. Yes, you're right. See, sports, not my strong suit. Although football, I'm okay. Usually.
Yeah, you did. Thankfully, we didn't have a repeat of the 0 for 5 on the football category. Did Alex talk about that at all when that came up, behind the scenes, as it were?
No, not so much. I think he just said, when he killed him. But no, he didn't bring that up. The funniest thing that happened with Alex that they cut out was when he was doing the hip hop category, and the first question was the members of NWA, and he had Eazy-E, MC Ren, I think, and Ice Cube, and he read MC Ren as Mick Ren, like the McRib. Look, when I answered that, you can see in the show, I'm laughing a little, and that's why they cut it out. So he looks perfect, and I look like I'm just laughing for no reason.
Well, I mean, they do usually have him redub those. There was a rare thing a couple weeks ago when because I think because he made light of it himself, they kept it in. But
Yeah,
normally, if he just goes motors through it, they'll have him redub it at a break.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's usually good.
Hmm. So, were there any moments that you kind of wanted back, as it were, or what was your least favorite part of the whole contestant experience?
There's only one moment that if I had a time machine and I'd go back and I'd stop it, and that would be buzzing in on that T.S. Eliot question. And I'm not just talking about Jeopardy. I'm talking about my whole life. All the mistakes I've made in my life are fine. That is the only thing that I wish I had not done in my entire life. I would go back and fix that, and I wouldn't buzz in, and hopefully I'd have a chance at winning that game, and who knows what would happen. It still bothers me to this day because winning 3 games is very nice. Puts you on the Tournament of Champions tracker, but it's precarious. It's not likely to keep me there.
It's probably not, especially if they're going to do a teen tournament this fall, then you're probably not going to make it on 3 wins.
No, I don't see it happening.
So, was there anything that you thought I was going to bring up but didn't, or any questions you may have for me?
I think that's pretty much everything. Everybody there was so great. They make your experience wonderful. Maggie Speak is amazing, and she's just one of the funniest people I've ever met. He just puts you at ease. All the contestants were great. Got along with all of them, especially Jordan, who was the guy who beat me, being the other Canadian on that week. We just bonded really well. Yeah, they were all great. And one of the contestants, Tyler, is a writer. I found his book, and I went and got his book from the library, and I'm reading it now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. And he mentions Jeopardy in it, and he mentions somebody answering what is Magna Carta, which is my first daily double mistake that cost me everything.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence? I don't know.
So, what was your favorite part of the whole experience then? Because I just asked you what your least favorite part was, but what was your favorite part?
I don't know. The whole experience is just amazing from start to finish. Everything about it was great. Everything from meeting all the other contestants to being on the show to winning again, to the warm Coke. Everything was great.
Mm-hmm.
Every last bit of it was wonderful. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat if I could.
Now, I think that I haven't been able to find another instance of it, and I think you and Jordan happened to be the first time 2 Canadians were on the same episode of Jeopardy.
Not including Alex Trebek.
Not including Alex Trebek, obviously,
yeah.
But 2 contestants both being Canadian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Does that surprise you?
I did. I thought it must have happened before. I'm assuming because when he came out and he made that crack about 2 Canadians on the show, I feel like he had said that before somewhere, but maybe it's just my imagination.
It's funny because when it happened, I went and looked, and I could have sworn it had happened before too, but the instance I was thinking of were separate. The Canadians were actually separated by a day. So.
Oh, okay. No.
I
remember seeing it.
Yeah, I don't. It feels like something. It feels like it was one of those things that you would have expected to have happened, but somehow hasn't.
Yeah. But there you go, making history.
Mm-hmm. So, on that note, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk with me about your experience.
Thank you.
And on that note, once again, I'm Andy Saunders. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to this episode of #Jeopardy Live Panel. We'll be back with another episode very soon. Thank you all for watching. Have a great night.